All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into a beautifully personal, incredibly sensory-rich story by an author named Phil. It's called The Melting Sky and the Refreshing River. It's a short narrative, but wow, it really packs a punch, focusing on one very specific, intense struggle, dealing with absolute, overwhelming heat. Phil captures the vibe of a sweltering day with such raw honesty that I swear you can practically feel the sun burning your own shoulders just by hearing his words. So let's walk through the sweltering journey together and see exactly how Phil brings this experience to life. Phil kicks things off with this absolute gem of a line, "I am melting like an ice cream." It is just such a wonderfully simple yet intensely vivid metaphor. We instantly know exactly how Phil feels. I mean, he doesn't just read us the thermometer or say, "Hey, it's hot." No, he paints this physical picture of complete structural collapse under the blazing sun. It hooks us immediately, right? Because we have all been there. You know that feeling when you're just turning into a puddle on the pavement? It sets the perfect tone for this whole explainer. It's visceral, it's super relatable, and it is laser-focused on the physical reality of just trying to survive a heat wave.
But Phil isn't sweating this out completely alone. He introduces us to the crew suffering right alongside him. We've got Phil, of course. Then there's his support worker, Chris, who is right there in the trenches dealing with the exact same heat. And then? Well, then we have Haley the cat. I just want to pause for a second and let that image really sink in. Imagine Haley the cat, stuck wearing a thick, permanent fur coat in the absolute peak of extreme heat. It's a little humorous, sure, but it's also a deeply sympathetic detail. It reminds us that every single living creature in this environment, human or feline, is just utterly trapped by this oppressive temperature.
So they can't just sit around and literally melt into the floor. They need a game plan. The story shifts to this desperate quest for some kind of physical relief, which leads Phil and Chris to the local co-op grocery store. And why do they go there? For that sweet, sweet artificial salvation known as air conditioning. This is definitely not your casual grocery run to grab some milk. It's an absolute survival mission. The grocery store basically transforms from a boring everyday shop into an essential sanctuary from the punishing heat outside. And look at this tactical survival strategy they put together to beat the heat. Step 1, get cold water. Hydration is always the first line of defense, right? Step 2, hide near the frozen freezer. I absolutely love that he uses the word hide here. They aren't just browsing the frozen peas, they are actively seeking refuge. They're practically using the cold air spilling out of the freezer as a physical shield. And finally, step 3, plan for a cold shower. They are so consumed by the heat that their entire thought process is totally built around securing that next source of physical relief. Extreme heat has this funny way of leveling the playing field and shifting dynamics. We get this great moment where Chris says he wants a cold shower when he gets home to his flat, and Phil immediately chimes in and says the exact same thing. This shared exhaustion really highlights a wonderful mutual understanding between Phil and his support worker. In this specific moment, it doesn't matter who is the client and who is the worker. They are literally just two guys desperately longing for the exact same relief. It's this quiet, really authentic moment of camaraderie built entirely around just getting through the day.
At this point, Phil introduces this brilliant spatial contrast in the narrative. Think about how the environment is split into two totally distinct worlds here. Above them, you have the sky, the burning sun, this relentless heat just radiating downwards. But then below them, you have the earth, the mountain they decide to walk on, these lovely green fields, but also the physical reality of dripping sweat. They're grounded on the earth, trying their best to enjoy the natural beauty around them, but that burning sky above is just constantly exerting its dominance. It's a really compelling way to frame the setting. You get the sense that they are quite literally trapped between the beautiful earth below and that punishing, untouchable sun above.
Right in the middle of this environmental pressure cooker, we get this incredibly touching piece of dialogue. Chris just says, "Drink plenty of water, buddy, because it's so hot." Let's unpack that for a quick second, because on the surface it's a super simple sentence, but it perfectly showcases the deep care and a practical reality of their relationship in this crazy weather. Chris is actively making sure Phil stays safe in a stifling, borderline dangerous environment, but he does it with such warmth, calling him buddy. It's an awesome reminder that even when the sky is literally burning above you, human connection and looking out for each other is still the most important anchor we have.
And then, out of nowhere, the landscape just hands them a total gift. They stumble across a river, and Chris asks a question that completely shifts the momentum of the story. Shall we take our socks off and go and have a paddle? Oh man, the sudden possibility of a refreshing change. The river is right there. It's an open invitation to just wash all that heat away, to break the tension of the dripping sweat and that oppressive sun.
Imagine the absolute, undeniable joy of making that discovery right in the dead center of a sweltering mountain walk.
Let's actually just pause and appreciate the sheer relief in Phil's words here. It was lovely and refreshing. After starting out melting like an ice cream, after desperately hiding by the co-op freezers, and after sweating buckets on the mountain, we finally arrive at this ultimate moment of sensory relief. Just imagine the cool water rushing over their feet, the temperature finally feeling like it's dropping even just a little bit. It provides a gorgeous contrast to the suffocating heat we've been tracking so far. This river is absolutely the literal and metaphorical oasis in their personal desert.
If we trace their whole journey hour by hour, you really get a sense of just how exhausting this day was. Hour 1, they're melting in the flat. Hour 2, they're literally hiding by the grocery store freezers. Hour 3, they're braving the mountain walk. Hour 4, they finally find some salvation with that lovely river paddle. But then, Hour 5, the unavoidable reality of having to travel back, the hot bus ride home. Looking at it this way brilliantly illustrates the relentless, non-stop game of dodging extreme heat that Phil and Chris were forced to play all day long.
And well, that brings us to the cruel irony of this whole adventure. Chris and Phil got on a bus. It was really hot. After all those calculated cooling strategies, and after successfully finding that amazing river, the heat just inevitably catches right back up with them on the final leg of their trip. I mean, public transit during a heat wave is its own special kind of torture, isn't it? It just goes to show that while the relief of the river was fantastic, it was fleeting. The reality of a heat wave is just persistent, stubborn, and completely inescapable.
Phil ultimately wraps up his entire experience with this incredibly powerful poetic summary, a story about above and below and melting in extreme heat by Phil. It's just so striking in its simplicity, right? He manages to distill that entire exhausting, sweaty day into these elemental concepts. You have the grand spatial contrast of the burning sky above and the earthly fields below, and it's all tied together by the deeply physical, shared reality of simply melting in the extreme heat. It leaves us reflecting on how vividly this short slice-of-life narrative captured a truly universal struggle. We've all fought the sun. We've all cherished that splash of cold water. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder. The next time you find yourself caught in the unforgiving, burning sun, what will be your co-op freezer, and where will you find your refreshing river?